5 minutes. Bum bitty 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 bum bum. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hmm. All right. 4 minutes until it gets started. Oh, hello, dog who does not care. Oh, what do you want? Okay, dogs. And the scratches in now. Won't be able to do it. Oh, you're too good for me now, huh? You're a dog that acts more like a cat. You know that, right? Dogs. What are you gonna do? You want scratches? I'm not gonna. I took you for a walk. Okay, there we go. Just had to make sure everything was working. Yeah, this is the first time doing this, so hello, welcome, travelers, to my little section of the internet. Uh, I wanted to do this for a few reasons. One of which being that I've got this backlog of books I've got in my hand. I've been meaning to read them. I just haven't gotten around to it. And, well, I was told a few weeks ago that I've got a lovely reading voice, apparently. And I thought, well, if I could make it entertaining for someone else, well, that's all the excuse my fine brain needs to actually crack open a good book. Now, to start off this little series, I've got here Irish Fairy and Folk Tales by W.B. Yeats. And, oh boy, the history behind that one is quite surprising. Got as a Christmas present a few years back, and I've been meaning to crack it open. Lovely illustrations. Uh, despite despite its age, don't want the copyright vultures to be coming down my throat. Despite this thing being despite the original publication being well over 130 years old at this point, just 100 years, well over 100 years old. Really depends. Hello, dog who does not care, who just wants me to. Yes, there are a few dogs who do not care that I'm doing something else. This is Lily. She'll occasionally be bumping up against my mic stand when she wants head scratches. And that's Steve, my brother Ryan's dog. We've been watching him. They're both absolute menaces when it comes to whenever they want attention. It is if they want attention, they want attention then and there. And they don't care what you're doing. Hope I didn't. Sorry. I have volume. I hope I've adjusted the mic so that I don't get any feedback, but I tend to be very loud and bombastic in my natural. I get excited about things. And who's not excited about a dog? Who's not excited about a dog? Look at that face. Look at that face. Who's not excited about dogs? Look at it. But yeah. Mm, mm. Yeah, I just hope the audio quality will be not will hold up, as it were. I've been meaning for better microphones. This is just the best my budget will allow for. But let us start with the introduction. Give us a bit of context. Oh, and if I mispronounce any names, vernaculars, or give any false information about the history of the book, please correct me. I'd rather be accurate than right. I'm not going to argue any points on this, but hang on. Got to angle myself so that so that my voice more easily enters the mic. Otherwise, I'll be just way too quiet. If I'm looking over this way and talking very loudly, it's different from talking this way and talking at a normal volume. Yeah. Dr. Corbett, Bishop of Oxford and Norwich, lamented long ago at the departure of the English fairies. In Queen Mary's time, he wrote, when Tom came home from labor, or Sis to milking rose, then merrily went their tabor, and merrily went their toes. I gotta say that again because I messed up the cadence entirely. It's supposed to be poetry. It's supposed to pause at the very moment, not just stare at a word. When Tom came home from labor, or Sis to milking rose, then merrily, merrily went their tabor, and merrily went their toils. But now, in the time of James, and they had all gone, for they were of the old profession, and their songs were Ave Maries. In Ireland they were still extant, giving gifts to the kindly and plaguing the surly. Have you ever seen a fairy or such like? I asked an old man in County Sligo. Ain't I annoyed with them, was the answer. Do the fishermen along here know anything of the mermaids? I asked a woman of a village in the county Dublin. Indeed, they don't like to see them at all, she answered, for they always bring bad weather. Here is a man who believes in ghosts, said a foreign sea captain, pointing at a pilot of my acquaintance. In every house over there, said the pilot, pointing to his native village of Roses, there are several. Uh, curtain, certainly, certainly, certainly that now old and much respected dogmatics. Certainly that now an old, much respected dogmatics, the spirit of the age has in no manner made his voice heard down there. In a little while, for he has gotten a consumptive appearance of late, he will be covered over decently in his grave, and another will grow old and much respected in his place, and never be heard of down there, and after him another, and another, and another. Indeed, it is a question of whether any of these personages will ever be heard of outside the newspaper offices and lecture rooms and drawing rooms and epi houses of the cities, or of the spirit of the age is at any time more than a fraud. At any rate, whole troops of their like will not intend Phange. At any rate, whole troops of their like will not hinge on the Celt much. Gurulus cambrensis, Dir, Gurulus cambrensis. Found the people have the western islands a trifle paganish. How many gods are there? Asked the priest a little while ago of a man from the island of Inister. There's one on the There is one on Inister, but it seems like a big place, said the man, and the priest held up his hands in horror. As Gurulus had, just 7 centuries before. Remember, I am not blaming the man. It is very much better to believe in a number of gods than in none at all, or to think that there is only one, but that he is a little sentimental and impracticable. 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 Little sentimental and impracticable, and not constructed for the 19th century. The Celt and his cromlechs and their pillar stones. These will not change much. Indeed, it is doubtful if anybody at all changes at any time, in spite of hosts and deniers and asserters and wise men and professors. The majority still advise to sitting down to dine 13 at table, or being helped to salt for walking under a ladder, or seeing a single magpie flirting his checkered tail. There are, of course, children of light who have set their faces against all this, though even a newspaper man, if you entice him to a cemetery at midnight, will believe in phantoms, for everyone is a visionary if you scratch him deep enough. But the Celt is a visionary without scratching. I need a bit of drink. Where was I? Yet, yet be it noted, if you are a stranger, you will not readily see a ghost. Nah. Be it noted, if you are a stranger, you will not readily get ghost and fairy legends, even in a western village. You must go adroitly to work and make friends with the children and the old men and those who have not felt the pressure of mere daylight existence, and those with whom it is growing less and will have altogether taken itself off one of these days. The old women are most learned, but will not so readily be got to talk, for the fairies are very secretive, and much resent being talked of, and there are not many stories of old women who were nearly pinched into their graves or numbered with fairy blasts. Or numbed. Sorry, not numbered, numbed with fairy blasts. At sea, when the nets are out and the pipes are lit, then. Cold read. This is my first time going through this, can't you tell? At sea, when the nets are out and the pipes are lit, then will some ancient hoarder of tales become loquacious, telling his histories to the tune of creaking of the boat. Holy Eve night, too, it is a great time, and in old days many tales were to be heard at wakes, but the priests have set faces against wakes. What's wrong with the wake? When you're not sleeping. In the Parochel Survey of Ireland, it is recorded how the storytellers used to gather together of an evening, and if any had a different version of the others, they would all recite theirs and vote. And the man who had varied would have to abide by their verdict. In this way, stories have been handed down with such accuracy that the long tale of Deirdre was, in earlier decades of the century, told almost word for word, as in the very ancient MSS in the Royal Dublin Society. In one case only, e- in one case only it varied, and then the MS were obviously wrong. A passage had been forgotten by the copyist, but this accuracy is rather in the folk and the bardic tales than in the fairy legends, for these vary widely, being usually adapted to some neighboring village or local fairy seeing celebrity. Each county has usually some family or personages supposed to have been favored or plagued, especially by the phantoms, as the Hecates of the Castle Hacket, Galway, who had their ancestor or fairy, or John O'Daly, or Liza del Sligo, who wrote Eileen Aron, the Song of the Scotch, have stolen a so-called Robin Adair, Adair, Robin Adair, Robin Adair. The Scotch have stolen and called Robin Adair, and which Hazel would sooner have written than all his or Oratorus, Oratorus, Handel. Oh, freaking, and which Handel would have sooner written than all his Oratorus. He lived for some time. mm, And the O'Donoghue of Kerry. O'Donoghue. Round these men, stories tended to group themselves, sometimes desert, deserting more ancient heroes for the purpose. Round poets they gathered, especially for poetry in Ireland, has always been mysteriously connected with magic. These folk tales are full of simplicity and musical occurrences, for they are literature of a class for whom every incident in the old rut of birth, love, pain, and death have cropped up unchanged for centuries, who have steeped everything in the heart, to whom everything is a symbol. They have the spade over which man has leant from the beginning. The people of the cities have the machines, which is prose and par parvenu. They have few events. They can turn over instants of a long life as they sit by the fire with nothing as time to gather meaning, and too many things are occurring for the big heart to hold. It is said that the most eloquent people in the world are the Arabs, who have only the bare earth of the desert and the sky swept bare by the sun. Wisdom has aligned upon three things, goes their proverb. The land, uh, the hand of the Chinese, the brain of the Frank, and the tongue of the Arab. This, I take it, is the meaning of that simplicity sought for much in these days by all poets, and not to be had at any price. The most notable and typical storyteller of my acquaintance is one Paddy Flynn, a little bright-eyed old man living in a leaky one-roomed cottage of the village of B, the most gentle, i.e., fairy place in the whole of County Sligo. Sorry, this is like got a little bit stuffed here because college in the village of there's this letter B and the rest is redacted. Uh, but anyway, the quote goes: "The most gentle, i.e., fairy place in the whole of the County Sligo," he says. Through others claim that honor for Drumhair or Drumcliff, a very pious old man too. You may have some time to inspect his strange figure and ragged hair if he happens to be in devout humor before he comes to the doings of the gentry. Strange devotion, old tales of Colmkill, and what he said to his mother. "How are you today, mother?" "Worse." "May you be worse tomorrow." And on the next day, "How are you today, mother?" "Worse." "May you be worse tomorrow." On the next, "How are you today, mother?" "Better, thank God." "May you be better tomorrow." In which undutiful manner he will tell you Columkill in incalculated cheerfulness, then most likely he will wander off into his favorite theme, how the judge smiles alike in rewarding the good and condemning the lost, to unceasing flames. Very consoling does it appear to Paddy Flynn, this melancholy and apocalyptic cheerfulness of the judge. Nor seems his own cheerfulness quite earthly, though a very palpable cheerfulness. The first time I saw him, he was cooking mushrooms for himself. The next time he was asleep under a hedge, smiling in his sleep. Assuredly, some joy not quite of his steadfast earthly lightness in those eyes, swift as the eyes of a rabbit, among so many wrinkles, for Paddy Flynn is very old. A melancholy there is in the midst of their cheerfulness, a melancholy that is almost a portion of their joy. The visionary melancholy of powerfully instinctive natures of all animals, in the triple solitude of age and eccentricity and the partial deafness he goes about much pestered by children. that that's taking the moisture out of my mouth. It appears I have put the dogs to sleep. Yeah, it appears I have put the dogs to sleep. And there we go. Let's see, where was I? Now, what was that? As to the reality of his fairy and spirit seeing powers, not all are agreed. One day we were talking of the Bantry. I have seen it, he said, down there by the water, baiting the river with its hands. He, it was who said the fairies annoyed him. Not that the skeptic is entirely unfair, even from these western villages. I found him one morning as he was bound his corn in the merest pocket handkerchief of a field. Very different from Paddy Flynn, skepticism in every wrinkle of his face, and a traveled man, too, a foot-long mohawk, Indian tattooed on one of his arms to evidence the matter. They who travel, says the neighboring priest, shaking his head over him, and quoting Thomas Kempis, seldom come home wholly. I had mentioned ghosts to the skeptic. Ghosts, says he. There's no such thing at all. At all! But the gentry, they stand to reason, for the devil, when he fell out of the heaven, took the weak-minded ones with him, and they were put into the waste places, and that's what the gentry are. But they are getting scarce now, because their time's over, you see. They're going back. But ghosts, no. And I'll tell you something more I don't believe in. The fire of hell. Then, in a low voice, that's only invented to give the priests and the parsons something to do. Thereupon, this man, so full of enlightenment, returned to his corn binding. Various collectors of Irish folklore have, from our point of view, one great merit, and from the point of view of others, one great fault. They have made their work literature rather than science, and told us of the Irish peasantry rather than of the primitive religion of mankind, or whatever else the folklorists grad are on the gad about. To be considered scientists, they should have tabulated all the tales in forms like grocers' bills. Item the Fairy King, item the Queen. Instead of this, they have caught the very voice of the people, the very pulse of life, in giving what is the most noted in this day, croaker and lover, full of ideas of harum scrum, harum scarum. Irish gentry saw everything humorized. The impulse of the Irish literature of their time came from a class that did not, mainly for political reasons, take the populace seriously, and imagined the country as a humorist Arcadia. Its passion, its gloom, its tragedy, they knew nothing of. What they did was not wholly false. They merely magnified an irresponsible type, an off nest among boatmen, cartmen, and gentlemen's servants, into a type of a whole nation, and created the stage Irishmen. The writers of 48 and the famine combined burst their bubble. Their work had the dash as well as the shallowness of the uh, ascendant idle class. and in Croker is touched everywhere with beauty, the a gentle Arcadian beauty. Carleton, a peasant born, has in many of his stories, I have only been able to give a few of the slightest, more expectant, es- eh, especially in his no that water. Well, actually, cranberry juice, but it's got ice. Let's see, where was I? I seem to have lost the plot somewhere. Carleton, a peasant born, has in many of his stories, I have only been able to give a few of the slightest, more especially in his ghost stories, a much more serious way with him. For all his humor, uh, for all his humor. Kennedy, an old bookseller in Dublin, who seems to have had something of a genuine belief in the fairies, came next in time. He has far less yeah, literary faculty, but is wonderfully accurate, given often very words the stories were told in. But the best book since Croker is Lady Wilde's Ancient Legends. The humor has all given way to pathos and tenderness. We have here the innermost heart of the Celt in moments he has grown to love through years of persecution, when cushioning himself with dreams. Sorry, old clock chiming out the hour. Where was I? We have here the innermost heart of the Celt. In moments he has grown to love through years of persecution, when cushioning himself about with dreams and hearing fairy songs in the twilight. He ponders on the soul and on the dead. Here is the Celt, only it is the Celt's dreaming. Besides, these are two writers of importance who have published so far nothing in book shape. Miss Letitia McClintock and Mr. Douglas Hyde. Miss McClintock writes a cur writes a cur a cure accurately. It's not accurate. No, that's not the word. Miss McClintock. No, no. Oh, is McClintock. Miss McClintock writes accurately and beautifully of the half Scot dialect of Ulster, and Mr. Douglas Hyde is now preparing a volume of folk tales in Gaelic, having taken them down for the most part word for word among the Gaelic speakers of Roscommon and Galway. He is perhaps most trusted of all. He knows the people thoroughly. Others see a phase of Irish life. He understand all he understands all its elements. His work is neither humorous nor mournful. It is simply life. I hope he may put some of his gatherings into ballads, for he is the last of our ballad writers of the school of uh, Walsh and Callanan men, whose work seems fragrant with turf smoke. And this brings to mind the chap books. They are to be found brown with turf smoke on cottage shelves. And there are, or were, sold on every hand by peddlers that cannot be found in any library of this day of not but cannot be found in any library of this city of Sassenach. The royal fairy tales, the Hibernian tales, the legend of the fairies, are the fairy literature of the people. Several specimens of our fairy poetry are given. It is more like the fairy poetry of Scotland than of England. The personages of England fairy literature are merely, in most cases, mortals beautifully masquerading. Nobody ever believed in such fairies. They are romantic bubbles from Provence. Nobody ever laid new milk on their doorstep for them. As my own part in this book, I have tried to make it representative as far as so new pages will allow of every kind of Irish folk faith. The reader will perhaps wonder that in all my notes I have not rationalized a single hobgoblin. I seek shelter for the worlds of Socrates. I should like to know, Socrates, whether the place is not somewhere at which Boris is said to have carried off Orthia uh, from the banks of Ilithid. Socrates, that's for changes. I am. Hmm. I do not know how to know I do not know how to pronounce that word. It's PH, that weird letter that looks like a combination between O and E, then DRUS. Hmm. And that is the exact spot. That little stream is delightfully bright and clear. I fancy that there might still be maidens playing near. Okay. Socrates, I believe the spot is not exactly here, but about a quarter of a mile lower down, where you cross the Temple Artemis. I think that there is some sort of altar of uh, Boreas at that place. Same word again. I think he's talking about. I think this is Greek. But yeah, PH that weird letter that looks like a combination between O and E that's somehow written in cursive. D-R-U-S. I do not know how to pronounce that. I do not recollect, but I beseech you to tell me, Socrates, do you believe in this tale? Go. Put too much weight on my elbow. My arm's going all funky. Socrates, the wise are doubtful, and I should not be singular. If, like them, I also doubted, I might have a rational explanation that Orthia was playing with Pharmacia when a northern gust carried her over the neighboring rocks, and this being the matter of her death, she was said to have been carried away by Boris. There is a discrepancy, however, about the locality. According to another version of the story, she was taken from the Areopagus, not from this place. Now, I quite acknowledge that these allegories are very nice, but he is not to be envied who has to invent them. Much labor and ingenuity. No, no, that's the word. Much labor and ingenuity. Yeah, ingenuity will be required of him. And when he has once begun, he must go on a re uh, he must go on and rehabilitate centaurs and chimeras dire. Gorgons and winged steeds flow in apace, and numberless other inconceivable and portentous monsters. And if he is skeptical about them and would fain reduce them one after another to the rules of probability, this sort of crude philosophy will take up all his time. Now, I have certainly not the time for such inquiries. I shall tell you why. I must first know myself, as Delphian inscription says, to be curious about which is not my business while I am still ignorant of my own self would be ridiculous, and therefore say farewell to all would be ridiculous. And therefore I say farewell to all this. The common opinion is enough for me, for as I was saying, I want to know not about this, but about myself. And I am indeed a wonder more complicated than a swollen with passion. I am indeed a wonder more complicated than a swollen with passion than the serpent Typho, or a creature of gentler and simpler sort, to whom nature has given a diviner and lower destiny. I have to thank Messrs. Macmillan and the editors of Belgravia all the year round, and the monthly packet for leave to quote from Patrick Kennedy's legendary fictions of the Irish Celts and Miss McClintock's articles, respectively. Lady Wilde for leave to give what I would say of her ancient legends of Ireland, Ward and Downey, and Mr. Douglas Hyde for his 3 unpublished stories and for valuable and valued assistance in several ways. And also Mr. Allingham and the other copyright holders for their poems, and Mr. Allingham's poems are from Irish Songs and Poems, Reeves and Tuner, Ferguson's and Selly's, Bryars and Wacko's Shillings reprint, my own and Miss O'Leary's from Ballads and Poems of Young Ireland, 1888, a little anthology published by Gill and Sons, Dublin. W.B.Yeats. Oh boy, well that was an introduction, and it was a tongue twister. I'm not sure if I was able to. Yeah, let's sit with that for a second while I pick up my thing to drink. Now, does that get you in the mood for listening to yarns being told? I wouldn't really say so, but I do think it was an interesting bit of history he goes over, as well as the state of mind was in when putting this together. I think it's a good bit, but I'm not gonna go through and read the table of contents. That'd just be silly. And you'd think reading the introduction wasn't silly, but anyway, that's the introduction to a collection of folk and fairy tales. While very dense, I do think reading the introduction to books is important because it gives you context for what the author might have been thinking while writing it, and context I think is everything to what things going around. Yeah, let's see if my vocal cords have recovered enough to do this. I'll probably only do a few chapters, and then I'm fairly certain I can only yammer on for about 2 hours tops before my voice starts giving out. But yeah, starting with the fate of the Children of Lir. The fate of the Children of Lir. It happened that the 5 kings of Ireland met to determine who would have the head kingship over them, and King Lear of the Hill of the White Field expected surely he would be elected. When the nobles went into council together, they chose for head king Derrig, son of Dragda, because his father had been so great a druid, and he was the eldest of his father's sons. But Lear left the assembly of kings and went home to the hill of the White Field. The other kings would have followed after Lear to give him his wounds of spear and wounds of sword for not yielding obedience to the man whom they had given the overlordship. But Derig the king would not hear of it, and said, "Rather let us bind him to us by bonds of kinship, so that peace may dwell in the land. Send over to him for wife the choice of the three maidens of the fairest form and best repute in Erin, the three daughters of Oilel of Erin, my own three bosom nurslings." So the messengers brought word to Lir that Darig the king would give him a foster child for his foster children. What? So the messengers brought word to Lir that Darig the king would give him a foster child of his foster children, Lir. Children. Odd way of turning that. Maybe it made sense back then. Lear thought well of it, and sat out next day with 50 chariots of the hill of the white field, and he came to the lakes of the Red Eye near Calilo. And when Lear saw the three daughters of Oilel, Derg the king said to him, "Take thy choice of the maidens, Lear. I know not. I know not," said Lear, "which was the choicest of them all, but the eldest of them is the noblest. Is it is she I had best take." "If so," said Derek to the king, "I if is the eldest, and she has given to thee if thou willest." So Lear and Ov were married and went back to the hill of Whitefield. And after this there came to them twins, a son and daughter, and they gave them the names uh, Finguela and Eod. Two more sons came to them, uh, Fiacra and Con. When they came, Oev died, and Lear mourned bitterly for her. But for his great love and for his children, he would have died of his grief. And Derig the king grieved for Lear, and sent to him and said, "We grieve for Oev, for thy sake, but that our friendship may not be rent asunder, I will give unto thee her sister Ophia for a wife." So Lear agreed, and they were united, and he took her with him to his own house. And at first Ophia felt affection and honor for the children of Lear and her sister. Indeed, every one who saw their 4 children could not help giving them the love of his soul. Lear doted upon the children, and they have always slept in the beds in front of their father, who used to rise at early dawn every morning and lie down among his children. But thereupon the dart of jealousy passed into Ophia. On account of this, she came to regard the children with hatred and enmity. They're her nieces and nephews. Come on. All right. That's freaking heard that one before. One day her chariot was yoked for her and she took it with her, and she took with her the 4 children of Lir in it. Bengola was not willing to go with her on the journey, for she had dreamt a dream in the night warning her against Ophia, but she was not able to avoid her fate. And when the chariot came to the Lake of Oaks, Ophia said to the people, "Kill the 4 children of Lir, and I will give you your own reward of every kind in the world." But they refused, and told her that it was an evil plot she had. Yeah, killing kids? Come on, come on. They're your nieces and nephews. What kind of familiarity is that? Then she would have then she would have raised a sword herself to kill and destroy the children, but her own womanhood and her weakness prevented her. Hey, oy vey. So she drove the children of Lear into the lake to bathe, and they did as Ophia told them. As soon as they were upon the lake, she struck them with a druid's wand of spells and wizardry, and put them into the forms of 4 beautifully white swans. And she sang this song over them. Out with, out with you upon the wild wave, children of the king. Hence for your praise shall be with flocks of birds. And Figo Answay and Benguela. Cool. Yeah. Thou which we know thee by thy right name. Thou mayst drive us from wave to wave, but sometimes we shall rest on the headlands. We shall receive relief, but thou punishment. Though our bodies may be upon the lake, our minds at least shall fly homewards. And again she spoke, assign me, no, again she spoke, assign an end for the ruin and woe which thou hast brought upon us. Ophia laughed and said, never shall ye be free until the woman from the south be united to the man from the north, until Largen and Connacht wed. Dock of Munster, nor shall any have power to bring you out of these forms. 900 years shall you wander over the lakes and streams of Erin. This only I will grant unto you, that you retain your own speech, and there shall be no music in the world equal to yours. The plaintive music you shall sing. This she said because repentance seized her for the evil she had done. And then she spake this lay. Away from me, ye children of the year, henceforth the sport of wild winds, until the again and Dioch come together, until ye are northwest of Red Erin. A sword of treachery is though upon the heart of Lir the mighty champion, yet though I have driven a sword, my victory cuts me to the heart. Of course, you're freaking feel guilty about doing this to your own nieces and nephews. Come on. Then she turned her steeds and went to the hall of Derek the king. The nobles of the court asked her where the children of Lir, and Ophia said, Lir will not trust them to Derek the king. But Derek thought in his own mind that the woman had played some treachery. Yeah, some treachery upon them. And he accordingly sent messengers to the hall of the White Field. Lear asked the messengers, Wherefore you're come? To fetch the children of Lir, said they. Have they not reached you with Ophia? Said Lear. They have not, said the messengers. And Ophia said it was you would not let the children go with her. Then Lear, melancholy and sad at heart, hearing these things, for he knew that Ophia had done wrong upon his children, he set out towards the lake of Red Eye. And when the children of Lear saw him coming, Finguella sang the lay, Welcome the cavalcade of steeds, approaching the lake of Red Eye. A company dread and magical surely seek after us. Let us move to shore, O Oed, Fiectra, and calmly con. No host under heaven can those hostmen be, but King Lear with his mighty household. Now, as she said, King Lear had come to the shores of the lake and heard the swans speaking with human voices. And he spake to the swans and asked who they were. Benguela answered and said, We are thy own children, ruined by thy wife, sister of our own mother, though her ill mind and through her ill mind and her jealousy. For how long is the spell to be upon you? Said Lear. None can relieve us until the woman of the south and the man from the north come together, till Largen and Carnock wed, Deoch of Munster. Then Lear and his own people raised their shouts with grief, crying and lamentation, and they stayed by the shore of the lake listening to the wild music of swans until the swans flew away. And King Lear went to the hall of Derg the king. He told Derg the king that Ophia had done to his children. And Derg put his power upon Ophia, and bade her say what shape on earth she would think the worst of all. She said it would be the form of an air demon. It is unto that form I shall put you, said Derek, the king, and he struck her with a wound's wand of spells and witchistry, and put her into the form of an air demon. She flew away at once, and she is still an air demon, and shall be forever. But the children of Lear continued to delight the Milesian clans. Milesian. Milesian clans. Oh, crap. Am I not doing it? I hope that was still able to pick me up even though it's turned this way. Crap. Crap, that's good. Where was I? Yeah. But the children of Lear continued to delight the Milesian clans in the very sweet fairy music of their songs. so that no delight was ever heard in Erin to compare with their music, until the time came appointed for the leaving of the Lake of Red-Eye. Then Fenguilla sang this parting lay. Farewell to thee, Derek the King, whose master of all Druids' lore. Farewell to thee, our father dear, Lir King of the White Field. We go to pass the appointed time, away and apart from the haunts of men. In the current of Moel our garb shall be bitter and briny, until Deoch comes to Largan. So come, ye brothers of once ruddy cheeks, let us depart from this lake of the red-eye. Let us separate in sorrow from the tribe that has loved us. And after they took flight, flying highly, lightly, airily, until they reached the moil between Erin and Albane, the men of Erin were grieved at their leaving, and it was proclaimed throughout Erin that henceforth no swan should be killed. Then they stayed all solitary, all alone, filled with cold and grief and regret, until a thick tempest came upon them, and Fingua said, Brothers, let us appoint a place to meet again, if the power of the winds separate us. And they said, Let us appoint to meet, O sister, at the rock of the seals. And then the waves rose up, and thunder roared, lightning flashed, and sweeping tempests passed over the sea, so that the children of Lir scattered from each other over the great sea. There came, however, a placid calm after the great tempest. Fenguilla found herself alone, and she said this lay. Woe upon me that I am alive! My wings are frozen to my side. O beloved three, who hid under shelter of my feathers, until the dead come back to the living, I and the three shall never meet again. And she flew over to the lake of seals, and soon saw Con coming towards her with a heavy step and drenched feathers. Pia Kra, also cold and wet and faint, and no word could they tell, so cold and faint were they. But she nestled them under her wing, and said, If Aod could come to us now, our happiness would be complete. But soon they saw Abbot coming towards them with a dry head and preened feathers. Fenguilla put him under the feathers of her breast, Finfa under her right wing, and Cole under her left, and together they made the sleigh. Bad was our stepmother with us. She played her magic on us, sending us north on the sea in the shapes of magical swans. Our bath upon the shore's ridge is the foam on the brine-crest tide. Our share of the ale feast is the brine of the blue-crested sea. One day they saw a splendid cavalcade of pure white steeds coming towards them. When they came near, there were the two sons of Derek the king, who had been seeking them to give them news of Derek the king and Lear their father. They are well, they said, and they live together, happy in all except that you are not with them. and for not knowing where ye have gone since the day ye left the lake of the Red Eye. Happy are not we, said Finguella. She sang this song. Happy this night on the household of Lir, abundant their meat and their wine. But the children of Lir, what is their lot? For bedclothes we have our feathers, and as for our food and our wine, the white sand and the bitter brine. Fiacra's bed is an con's place, and under cover of my wings on the moil Hadod Aod is a shelter of my breast, and so side by side we rest. So the son of Derrig the king came to the hall of Lir, and told the king the condition of his children. And then the time came for the children of Lir to fulfill their lot. They flew in the current of the Moyle to the bay of Eris, and remained there until the time of their fate, and they flew to the hill of Whitefield, and found all desolate and empty, with nothing but unroofed green raths and a forest of nettles. No house, no fire, no dwelling place. The four came close together, and they raised three shouts in lamentation aloud, and Fingullah sang this lay. Octon, this it is bitterness to my heart, to see my father's place forlorn, no hounds, no pack of dogs, no women, no valiant kings, no drinking horns, no cups of wood, no drinking in lightsome halls. Ocon, I see the state of this house, that its lord our father lives no more. Much have we suffered in our wandering years, by winds buffet, by cold frozen. Now has come the greatest of our pain. There lives no man who knoweth us in this house. We knowest us in the house where we were born. So the children of Lir flew away to the glory isle of Brennan the Saint, and they settled upon the lake of birds until the holy Patrick came to Erin, and the holy Macua came to Glory Isle. And the first night he came, came to the island, the children of Lir heard the voice of his bell ringing for matins. So they started and leapt about in terror, hearing it. And her brothers left Finguella alone. What is it, beloved brothers? Said she. We know not what faint, fearful voice it is we heard. Then Finguella recited this lay. Listen to the cleric's bell. Pose your rings and raise thanks to God for his coming. Be grateful that you hear him. He shall free you from pain and bring you from the rocks and stones. Yea, calmly, children of Lir, listen to the bell of the cleric. And Macau came down to the brink of the shore, and he said to them, Are ye the children of Lir? We are indeed, said they. Thanks be to God, said the saint. It is for your sakes I have come to this isle beyond every other island of Erin. Come ye to land now, and put your trust in me. So they came to land, and he made for them chains of bright white silver, and put the chain between Eog and Finguilla, the chain between Con and Farcrin. It happened at this time that the Largan was prince of Connaught, and he was to wed Diolch, the daughter of the king of Munster, and had heard the account of the birds. She became filled with love and affection for them. And she said she would not wed until she had the wondrous birds of Glory Isle. Largan sent for them to the Saint Macoeg, but the saint would not give them, and both Largan and Diolch went to Glory Isle. And when Largan went to seize the birds from the altar, but as soon as he had laid hands on them, their feathery coats fell off, and the three sons of Lir became three withered, bony old men, and Finguilla leaned a lean, withered old woman, without blood or flesh. Largan started at this and left the place hastily, but Finguilla chanted this lay. Come and baptize us, O cleric, clear away our stains. This day I see our grave, Fiacla and Con on each side, and on my lap, between my two arms, place Ugg, my beauteous brother. After this lay, the children of Lir were baptized, and they died. And they were buried as Finguilla said, and Fiac and Con on either side, and Eod before her face. A cairn was raised for them, and on it were the names written in runes, and that is the fate of the children of Lir. I have been reading. It's a bit past 10. That was an hour. My voice feels rough. I guess with anything, I guess I just didn't do enough vocal exercises before the stream. But, oh man, my voice is already feeling rough after an hour. So, I plan on doing this, I think, once a week until I get through this book, and then I'll pick a different book. Hopefully I'll be able to get more time, and hey, maybe I'll get used to reading aloud to the point where I can do it for longer. Freaking starting with some fairly heavy stuff. And anyway, have some conversations about the stories in the comments if you like. Love to hear everyone's thoughts. Pleasant day and pleasant travels, and may you wander back here again.